So it's the lazy guy here, Andrew Crew. I'm here with Kim about her fantastic talk on documentation, which strikes fear into most people's hearts. So give us a little bit of background before you tell us about your talk.
Okay, so I am an educator by trade. I have a master's degree in training and development, so I understand about writing curriculums, trainings, workshops. I am a certified special needs teacher, so I've worked with people of all ages, all abilities. I work with learners from age 5 to almost in the grave, taught GED, all kinds of things. And I'm currently pursuing a doctorate of business administration, technology, entrepreneurship, where I'm focused on organizational knowledge sharing. How do you share knowledge within organizations? Hence, documentation. Documentation, though it may be considered a dirty word to a lot of people, is necessary for effective communication. Documentation is that thing that helps you communicate throughout your organization as well as to your customers, your clients, your communities. And so without documentation, you're not doing an effective job of communicating anything. So whether people like it or not, it's a necessary part of being a successful, effective business, and particularly for competitive advantage. Those businesses who are able to effectively communicate what they do, how they do it, to all internal and external stakeholders are better at innovation and competitive advantage.
Well, that applies more than just businesses. Also, anyone who communicates effectively does much better, period. So it's applicable to everything.
It's anything. So I speak because I'm getting a degree in business, but think about your relationships. If you don't communicate well, your relationships don't work.
Oh yeah.
So it's effective communication is something that we all should be striving for, in just a matter of you want to be heard, you want to be understood, I want to be understood. When I come to documentation or when I have a question about a product or service, and I can't get an effective answer, I leave that product or service and go to one that I can get the answers that I need.
Oh yeah.
And that's the same thing if you're in a relationship. If you can't get the answers you need from the person you're with, you move on to something else.
Oh yeah.
And so that's how important it is.
Yeah. Now I haven't had a chance to watch the talk yet because we had some issues with the live streaming. But did you go through the different pieces that are in a communication, like between you talking, delivering the message, and the recipient receiving?
Well, I did it very uniquely. So the name of the talk was "What the Docs: How to Read and Write Documentation to Get Shit Done." So that was the name of the talk.
The proper title.
Yes. And so I took it from, because I understand the challenges that people have with documentation, so I took it from, let's write a novel. You're telling, it's your opportunity to tell your constituents, your stakeholders, your story.
Yep. So
when you pick up a book, you read the back cover, or you read, if it's a hardback, you read the inside flap to see what this is about. And so to write documentation effectively, you need to think of it that way, and you need to put yourself in different perspective. First of all, the reason it's a challenge for most people is because you don't put yourself in the position of who you need to put to. Documentation is not for you. It's for the person who needs to read it to understand.
For us.
Yes.
For not you, literally.
Yes. Because you know what that thing is. Mm-hmm. It's for the people who don't, so when you're thinking of documentation, you have to put yourself in the mindset of the writer of the documentation, so the author of the book, and the reader of the book. You have to be able to do that as well.
Yeah, definitely.
And so that's where communication comes in as well, because it forces you to come out of your comfort zone and put yourself in the role of who needs to access this thing.
Oh yeah. I was the writer or the editor for a little technical writing course I took in college, and one of the sections was how do you prepare for it, and it was all about having a good balanced breakfast and a meal. And it was like, but for technical writing, that's more like how you live your life, not technical writing. So this doesn't belong in the book. This is a technical documentation book on technical documentation. Mm-hmm. So how you live your life is not a part of it. So you definitely have to think about who's your audience.
Yes.
Especially. when you're writing stuff.
And that's what I talk about. It's again, so when you're talking about technical, and it sounds like this was when you were in school, I'd say treat your back cover like you would, it's an abstract, it's the introduction.
Yeah.
So you want to share with individuals why they're there, what problem we're solving. If your problem is not this thing, you should not be here.
Don't even go here.
Yeah, exactly. So there's so much that you need to communicate that helps a person understand. Because you also have to understand that the majority of people, unless they're technical, are only coming to your documentation because they have a problem.
Yep.
You do not want to exacerbate their problem. You want to solve their problem. So you want to get any barriers of the way that are in the way of communicating whatever the solutions they are. Because they're already stressed, can't get this thing to work.
This should be easy.
Yeah, and so you don't want someone to leave as a customer or community member because they couldn't get through the documentation. That's just not a wise way to lose somebody.
Oh yeah, and like a lot of the documentation I still have to read. They don't explicitly tell you what you should be working on, but it's like when talking with the actual service reps, they know like, oh wait, no, you're in the wrong area entirely. You're not going to get your question answered in that part because it is not even the right section you should be in. It's like, but that's not written anywhere.
Yes, exactly.
And it's all stored in people's head, which is the biggest problem. It's like it needs to get written down and explained better, like where certain things are needed.
And so this is where, okay, so I'm going to give you some research. So in the industrial age, there was explicit knowledge. That was what everybody collected. It was a manual that told you how to work this machine or whatever you did. So you got hired, HR gave you a manual, you read it, you signed off on it. You got to your department, they gave you a manual, you signed off on it. We live in the information age, and in the information age, information means absolutely nothing. It's only when information is turned into knowledge that it's valuable. But how do you get, as a senior person or somebody who's been working on this, that tacit knowledge from you to me?
Oh yeah.
Because when you give it to me, it's only information. It's only when I internalize it and do something with it that it becomes knowledge for me.
Yeah.
Without so documentation is we talked about this. Yeah, it's exactly. It's a business. You need to put processes in place. And so this is a necessary process because you can't scale well. You see businesses do it every day. Just because money is coming in the door does not mean that you're a competitive, efficient company that's going to be around, because you haven't put the things in place that will allow you to be around long term. And those things help you scale.
Oh yeah, like my first company that I had, when I was leaving, they ended up having to replace me with 12 people that still could not get the job I was accomplishing done. And unfortunately, I didn't have enough time. I didn't have any time with them to train them on all the processes I did, all the technical stuff I did, and never had time to do any documentation.
Exactly.
So it's like suddenly you have a sinking ship.
And that's
there's no way to recover from this until you get somebody with my level of skill and knowledge
that
can
recover
from it.
And
then there's always onboarding time.
Yeah, and so even with that, so people, if for some reason there's this mindset in business that we won't deal with it until it becomes a problem.
Reactive.
And everything is reactive.
Yeah.
And so another thing about my presentation that's very important to me is my work in inclusion and diversity. And that's an issue with when you have great documentation. It makes it very easy for people to include people who wouldn't be there before, because they can read what this is, they can communicate, they can collaborate, they can contribute. So when we talk about, we want more inclusion and diversity in tech, if we aren't effectively have tools to communicate, you're just talking, you're not doing anything. So it's looking at the system, not looking at these silos. Let me do this one thing. Let's put a code of conduct in place. Let's do this one. No, it's the whole system. How does
everything works together?
Exactly, because that one thing is going to affect this other thing.
Oh yeah, at some point in time, it always does. It always comes back around. So after you had your presentation, I heard there was a couple questions that were asked that
I asked.
That you asked, but no one could answer effectively.
No one could answer, period. It wasn't even that it was effective. I got no answers.
Well,
so
it's not effective. There's no answer. Well, technically, no answer is being quite effective with the answer.
Yeah, I was expecting something, and that was a shock for me. It took me aback because one question was, what do you have in place for people with disabilities to access your documentation? Because that's a huge segment of the population that's getting left out of things.
Oh yeah.
How do you do accessibility in your documentation?
Yeah.
And the second one is because I keep hearing, I know just from working with newbies that the mantra or the narrative is go into Q. If you want to transition into tech, it's easy to go into QA or support and then go into something else. So QA is not even seen as a job or career path.
Yep.
So and so when I asked that question, how do you onboard newbies? No one had that answer, and that shocked me too, because since I've been at the Selenium conference, excuse me, that's several conversations I've had about, people don't take us seriously, but the community's not doing anything to change that narrative.
Change that perspective.
Yeah, so it's not, again, when I talk about inclusion and diversity in these systems, it's stop blaming, stop pointing fingers, own it and fix it. Because if one thing we can say about technology though is we're making this shit up as we go. So why not make that up? Just say, hey, we're on par, this career is on par with development.
Yep.
Who's to say you can't say that, and start acting like it? Start providing information and resources so that people can see this as a career path, because it is a viable career path. Because I say all the time, we don't need as many developers as we think we are. We don't need that many people in development, but we need people in other roles. QA, support. We need people who project managers. We need people in HR who understand technology. We need all these other skill sets.
Oh yeah, my last company, the backlog of just stuff that's already been built, ready to go into production, just needs to get QA is, I think it was something like 9 months or something.
Yeah, that's crazy.
And it's like, we have so much technical skills that we can get stuff, they could get stuff built, but it's like we can't get it out the door.
Yeah.
But QA was never seen as a role. So.
And it goes to the one thing I tell people, particularly underrepresented and marginalized when they're coming into tech. They're like, how do I've gone on these interviews and done it. I'm like, stop allowing the industry to tell you your value. You figure what your value is and you communicate that. So QA needs to stop allowing the technology industry to tell them their value. Figure out, your value, communicate it, and that's how you make this a better career choice for people who are out there. Oh yeah,
and it's definitely because like QA has to work with all the different departments in the company as well. You actually have possibly the most product knowledge contained in one single entity.
Exactly. Because where everybody else is in silos, you have to work with all kinds of people.
Yeah, you have to work with the developers to know the technical side of stuff. You need to work with the business to understand the business aspects of it. Yes, the business analyst might know a little bit more from the business side than you do, but they will have nowhere near, will not have anywhere near as much technical knowledge as you do. And just because that it's like you are a really good source of knowledge about the insides of the
and also when you're doing, you pass or fail, you just don't say pass or fail. You give a reason why this passed. It passed because the A, B, C, and D, and it failed because of A, B, C, and D. That's communication. That's documentation. So that people, when they look at it, you don't want to just go by what you failed. Oh, this was successful. How can we replicate this?
Yep.
So it's on both ends.
Oh yeah, I've had a laundry list of stuff like that, and it was bugs that were clearly defined, and they just never got worked on properly. Shortcuts were taken, and shortcuts did not work.
Nope.
Which is, I know, shocking. I know. So, this was your first Selenium conference.
Yes.
How would you describe your experience with it?
This is a very friendly community. More diverse than I thought it would be. There were several women here, so it's nice to see that. Again, women, when we're talking about want to come in and have a great career in tech, QA seems to be a great place to go. Oh yeah. So it's a great option, a great technical option for people. So there were a lot of females here, a lot of people, and because it's an international conference, I love being able to meet people from other countries. Oh yeah. Because you see not only the differences, but you see so many of the similarities, because so many people in all of these other countries are having the same conversations. And it's only when you get together that you're like, wait a minute, we're talking about the same things. We're not very much different. And so I love that. But it's a very friendly conference. I like that.
Good. Yeah. I'm glad you enjoyed it. Yeah. Is there anything you would have liked to have seen done differently from your point of view? Besides more sleep.
No, I got my sleep. Don't worry about that. I got my sleep in.
Most people do.
No, I got my sleep in. No, actually, this is a very good conference. I'm sure at some point I may some little quirky thing, but my philosophy in life is do I want to be happy or do I want to be right? And so those little quirky things that they don't really stand out to me, I'm okay with them. Yeah. So there was nothing glaring.
That stood out. Yeah.
There was nothing glaring about that was wrong.
Yeah.
This was a really good experience, and the hospitality was great. The experience was great, and just the fact that to be in other communities, it's hard to be connected to the people who actually write the code. So just to be sitting in a room and these people who are actually responsible for the code base are there, and you can just have a conversation with them. That's great for people who I don't know how many people know who those people are.
Yeah.
But just to have those people in the space and to be able to have and available and have a conversation with them and get your questions answered. Yeah, that's amazing.
Oh yeah. That was like the first weird thing. What I experienced from the conference was one of the first presentations I was doing. I had a few of the higher ups. Yeah. The old school leaders of it come in and just stop by my presentation. I was like, I guess I'll continue, but are they happy about what I'm saying? Are they angry about what I'm saying? Or no opinion at all? And it was very interesting because they all liked it and they all had their own opinions and everything. But it was interesting that they were still essentially in the trenches with everybody. They weren't in a walled garden or anything.
Exactly, where you would see in other things. Yeah.
And they're all very inclusive. And
So that was a good thing to see. Just the fact of them being around and available was good.
Yeah, the openness and the transparency went into it as well. I mean, we had the State of the Union with Steinman, and it was talking about where does he see the project going as well. Well, I'd like to thank you for your time.
You're welcome.